there were only 4 counselors, and I was the only male counselor. And as everyone who works at the Y on a daily basis knows, the sports camp, there's not many girls there. So when we have our bathroom runs and we're doing pool checks and whatnot, I was the only person who could go into the boys' room and have to like take charge and whatnot. And on top of all that, we had a young boy named Dylan. Now, Dylan was about, I want to say, 10 or 11 years old when I started working there. And the thing about Dylan is Dylan was the only camper that had Down syndrome in our camp. So on top of all these 40 or 50 other kids that were also ranging in age from ages 6 to 12. So it was pretty difficult there as well. So having a boy with Down syndrome could be fairly difficult at times too. And the only thing that Dylan liked to do during the day was swimming. It's the only thing he cared about. He would just sit on the benches, playing his little leapfrog spelling games and whatnot, and but the only thing that he would get up and go do for the day is swimming. And you couldn't believe the smile on this kid's face every day when you were just like, Dylan, it's swimming. It's just like swimming. Like he loved it. It was the only thing that he wanted to do all day. But his version of swimming was holding onto you like a koala bear holds onto a tree, and you walking around in the kiddie pool area while he has his bubble on and everything. So I did that. I started doing that for about probably like 3 weeks or so, and once we got partway into the summer, I wanted to see if I could get Dylan to try and swim on his own at all. And I had Katie Woolbright, who was the adaptive director at the time, in the pool area as well. And she started giving me some tips and whatnot as to how I could try and get Dylan to be on his own. So I started trying to weasel like 1 or 2 noodles in between us of he's clawing into my neck and wrapping his legs around me and whatnot. And I'm sitting there trying to weasel these noodles in, and I'm trying to rip his arms off so he's wrapping his legs around tighter. And then I finally get his arms off, so I rip his legs off, he's got his arms around even tighter, digging his nails into my neck. And he's just screaming, yelling, and I finally get him off, and I just threw my hands up in the air. I said, Dylan, just look! And he just stopped for a second, realized that he was perfectly fine, that he had nothing to worry about, and he was all by himself, doing it all by himself. And seeing the joy on his face that day, I will never forget it. And that's what made me turn my senior project into working with Katie and her adaptive program. So I started doing a whole bunch of programs, volunteering with her, and I just really grew to love the Y and everything that it stood for. And as I was doing those lessons, one of my coworkers, Zach Allen, he had an idea for doing some surf lessons with adaptive kids. So we kind of pulled some strings together, and with the help of Katie and Zach, we were able to start a program where we got to teach surf lessons to kids with adaptive special needs and whatnot. And it was really, really cool. We only, unfortunately due to weather, we only got a few days out on the water, and none of the waves were really big enough for the kids to stand on and whatnot. But being out there with some of these kids that didn't have the strength to push themselves up on the board, and simply to push them in and have them just hold it just like it's a boogie board on a 7-foot long board. Just seeing the joy of their face when they're crashing off and whatnot. I had a boy by the name of Ben come up to me and just like keep telling me that he wanted to ride the big kahuna, just like the biggest possible wave that he could find. And it just all the lessons that I've learned from the Y through that adaptive program and through the different things that I've worked. I've also worked with the youth sports programs. I've been doing that for 3 or 4 years now, and I've actually gained a surfboard and a wetsuit from it, luckily, because I've had parents tell me that they don't need them anymore, and that I've done so much for their kids that it's the least they can do to give me their old surfboard, even though it's got a few dings here and there. And I've also worked at the front desk. I've helped out in the youth nights and whatnot. I'm just really happy to be a part of the Y, and I haven't been able to leave since, and I was only planning on working there for that one summer, so, and it doesn't look like I'm leaving anytime soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.